Thank you for joining this session. So today, I'm going to take you through the journey of learning and mastering some good practices in building an OfficeConnect report. And so I'll present you guys a few cases, which are all focusing on the issues that can happen to your OfficeConnect reports if you do not do these good practices properly. These issues are all commonly raised by our clients. So if you do not know about them yet, I hope you'll be beneficial to your future use of OfficeConnect reports. So my presentation will be divided into 4 parts. The first part will be focusing on workbook properties, whereby I will talk about the issue associated with report dates and settings override. I will then move on to talk about the impact from different ways of adding account elements to your OfficeConnect reports, whereby I will talk about the impact on comments and new accounts being added to your chart of accounts. The last 2 parts of the presentation will be focusing on copy and paste and find and replace in the OfficeConnect context. So if you are all ready, sit tight, I'll get it started now. So report dates in workbook properties. It is important to set up the report date in your OfficeConnect report before you do anything else in the report. This is especially important in the case where you want the time elements in your reports to be dynamic from month to month. Although we've been mentioning this all the time in our general training session.
Perfect, good job.
Oh, yep. Okay, it's working now. Sorry for that. Sorry for that, guys. So, yeah, I was on report date in workbook properties. So, report dates in workbook properties, it is important to set that up in your workbook properties as the first thing of everything before you do anything else in your reports. Because that will allow, especially in the case where you want your reports to be dynamic from month to month. As I said, although we've been mentioning that all the time in our general training section, have you guys ever encountered or ever wonder the consequences that can happen to your report if you didn't set that up properly in the first place? So this is the first story that I'm going to share with you guys. So I've got a report here, which is built by the finance team in this company, and let's just call this company QMetrix. So this company is adopting the financial year from Jan to December. And as of November 21, the finance team has built this report with the purpose of analyzing the year-to-date actuals and budgets, as well as comparing against the last year actuals. So let's take a closer look to how this report was built. I'll bring up the task pane now. So if I highlight column C, which is one of the time column, and move over to the review tabs in the element list, you can see that it's showing me now the time element for this month is current month. And if I move across to highlight column B, we can see it's now showing me current year -1. So what this means is that we can see that the report was built with the time elements relative to the report dates in the workbook properties. So if now I bring up the workbook properties, you can see that the report date, as expected, is set up as November 21, and this checkbox of making the elements as relative is ticked as well. So it seems that this report is well built at this point of time, and it was happily shared across the broader business of QMetrix. And now the timeline has moved forward to Jan 22, which is the first month of the next financial year. There is now a new guy coming to the finance team, and let's just call this new guy Teddy. So the first task that Teddy has got from his manager is to update his existing reports to reflect the latest financial results to the business. So when Teddy was given this template, he's obviously got lots of good ideas in his brain, thinking that he can extrapolate on top of these templates to make the reports prettier and make the reports more informative to the business. But before he does any of those extra stuff to the reports, the first thing that is in his mind is to update this outdated column, because obviously currently it's still showing us the results from the last financial year. So Teddy has got some basic OfficeConnect building skills. So he knows of all the time elements is storing in the element list here on the left-hand side. So he then comes quickly over to the element list to look for the month that he's after, which is Jan 22. He then highlights column C and column D with the intention of updating these two columns as Jan 22. He will replace it. He will also do that to column B because column B was meant for last year actuals. And because we are now in FY22, column B should be showing me the results of FY21. And he will now refresh his report. And everything seems fine. Column C and column D is showing me the Jan, showing Teddy the Jan year-to-date actuals, and column D is showing last year actuals as well. So it seems that the first goal for Teddy has been achieved, and everything seems fine. And now the timeline has moved forward again to February 22. So it comes to another month end to the business. So when Teddy look at this report again, now he knows more about OfficeConnect. He knows that from month to month, instead of dragging in all the time element all over again, he knows that there is a setting in workbook properties, which is called report date, whereby he can simply update the report date to refresh his whole report. So he decided to do that instead of re-dragging all the time element over again. So now he's going to change the report date from what it is November 21 currently to February 22, which is the current month for the business. So he will now click OK and refresh his report. And there you go. The trouble has now finally come to Teddy. So he's intending to look for the February results, but now it seems that the report is giving us an April result. So if he's bringing up the workbook properties again to double check what the report they were set up as, and we can obviously see it was set up as February 22. But why is column C and column D is showing us the April results? And what's even stranger, in column B, it was supposed to be last year actuals, but now it's even showing me the current year actuals. So what is happening to my reports? To all the audiences who've been following me up to this point of time, if you do know the answer, I'm sorry I can't let you speak the answer yet. But for all the other guys who do not know the answer and are scratching your head thinking about why is this happening, I'm going to tell you the answer now. So let's take a step back to the first day or to the first month when Teddy was attempting to update his reports, which is Jan 22. So when Teddy got this template, the first thing that he was doing is he came straight over to the element list to look for the month that he's after and apply this month to the relative or to the corresponding column that he's intending to update. He was not fully wrong to do that. However, he ignores and neglected the fact that the report date in workbook properties was still set as November 21 at that point of time. With that as a pre-existing condition, every time element that you are applying to your report will be relative to that report date, which was November 21. So when Teddy was dragged Jan 22 to the reports, it would be relative to November 21. And because there is a 2-month gap between these 2 months as a relationship, all the time element here will be showing current month plus 2 instead of current month. So to prove that concept, I'll highlight column C now, and I'll move over to my View tab again. And you can see, instead of showing me current month, it's now showing me current plus 2. And this logic is applied to column B as well. So because the report date was set up as November 21 originally, and Teddy was wanting to update column B by applying FY21. So you would then become the current year instead of current year -1. And that's why when Teddy, as of February 22, wanting to update the report date to February, everything would bring across to April because it's current month +2. And this is why the issue is happening and everything is shifting wrongly and gives you some funny results. So this first story is telling us the importance of setting up the report date accurately or as the first thing of everything before you do everything else. And you need to be more cautious about this, especially when you are updating your reports on an existing template, because the report dates might well be back to some months ago that you don't know where they are. So remember that this is the first thing that you always need to do. And it is one of the good practices that I'm going to remind you guys. And now you may well come to me and say, hey, Ted, I do get to know this concept, but what happened if I have updated the report extensively and it's such a big effort to rebuild the whole report? I don't really want to do that. So in that case, what's the remedy or what's the solution to fix the issue if it does happen and to avoid rebuilding the report? So obviously there are a few different solutions around this matter, but the solution that I'm going to present to you is to leverage the swapping between relative time and absolute time to fix this issue. So to use that approach, there are 4 steps to do it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to update the report date back to what it was originally, which is November 21. Click OK. I will fetch the report. So with that being done, you can see all the time element is going to Jan 22 and last year actual is 21. So it's going back to the first day when Teddy was updating his reports. And next step is that we are going to swap all the relative time here back to absolute. To do that, we will need to highlight the time column first and come over to the review tab, right-click the time and switch to absolute. And you can see that current month has become Jan 22, which is the absolute time. And I'll do that to each of the time column. Oh, sorry, I need to highlight this first. Yeah, so let me just double check. Yeah, so this step of swapping everything to absolute time is to isolate the time elements in your reports from the report dates. So once this is done, whatever you change your, however you change your report dates in the workbook property, it will not impact your reports. So the next step is to update the report dates to the dates that is aligned to the month here and the year here. So in this case, I'll change the report date to Jan 22, and I'll click OK. And as I mentioned, because they have all become absolute time now. So even if I refresh my reports, it will not impact anything. So the last step here is that I will swap all the absolute time all over again back to relative. And the reason for that is that all the time element now is showing me Jan 22, and column B is obviously the last year actuals by comparison to this financial year. And the report date, as what I have just done, is I have changed it to Jan 22. So if now I update all the column, say for column C, from absolute to relative again, it would then become relative to the current report date that has been set up. So if we take a look across in the review tab again, you can see that it has now become current month. And I'll do this step to column D as well, relative, and column B, relative. And once this is done, I will refresh my report. And I will try to change to other months just to test the concept to see if it's working. So say if I'm swapping to February again to see if it will be going to April again, taking me to the future. refresh the report. So you can now see that all the time column is now shifting correctly, and that means we have fixed the issue. So this is one of the solutions that you can use if it does happen to a report and you have fewer reports extensively. And let's go back to my role play again. So up to this point, Teddy is thinking he's done so many hard work to fix this issue. So the next thing that he's wanting to do is to save the report instead, in case that he loses all the hard work that he's been doing. So he will now save his report, and everything will become not available. So for all the audiences who do not know this feature, this is actually an extra security layer provided by OfficeConnect. It will be helpful because, as you will all know, OfficeConnect is an Excel add-on, and you may well by mistake distribute a copy of the Excel report to the recipient who's not supposed to get your reports. And if this is set up, it will be beneficial in the case that the wrong recipient will not be able to see all the numbers unless they have the corresponding login. However, if you are still in the middle of updating your report, your preference may not be turn this feature on because it might be quite bothering, especially when you might need to save the report multiple times, or even sometimes you turn on autosave, then this not available thing will just come up again and again. So to tell this preference, he doesn't want this happening when he's still constructing his report. So he's going to come up to user setting here. And in this clear data setting, he's going to change always clear data upon save to never clear data upon save in this user setting. And he'll click OK. And refresh his report to bring back the numbers. And let's imagine like he'll just keep doing some more update here. And he's going to save the report again. And the trouble seems to come back to Teddy again, because remember, he has set up the clear data thing in the user setting to never clear data upon save. But why the not available thing is still happening, is still showing him or showing us? This doesn't seem to make sense again. Is this a bug? So for all the audiences, again, if you do not know the answer, I'll give you 5 more seconds to think about why is this happening and why the not available thing is coming up again. So, okay, time's up. I'm going to tell you the answer. So, because my topic is set as workbook properties, so I can guess, you can more or less guess the answer would be lying on the workbook properties. So the issue why this is happening is on OfficeConnect, there are 2 settings that will control the generic setup of your report. The first one is your workbook properties. The second one is the user settings. However, although these 2 settings can both control the generic setting on your OfficeConnect reports, whenever the setting in these 2 vary, workbook properties will override the setting in your user setting. So although Teddy was updating the reports in user setting, it was actually get overwritten by the setting in workbook properties. So to prove that, if now I bring up the workbook properties again, you can see in the clear data section, it is still showing always clear data upon save. So if now I change it back to never clear data upon save and click OK, and refresh the data to bring back the number and click save just to test the concepts. And you can see no matter how many times I have clicked save, the number is still here. So this is another thing that we are going to remind you guys. So whenever you realize some settings that you have set up are not working properly, just to check whether the workbook properties has something that is different from your user setting. If it does, you might need to think about adjusting that. So these 2 stories are the key points that I'm going to bring out in the first part, workbook properties. I'll now move on to adding accounts to your reports. As we all know, there was many different ways of adding accounts to your OfficeConnect reports. And I have done it in advance by applying these two revenue groups into my reports in two different methods. I will not tell you what method it was respectively yet, but I will tell later. So the first thing that I'm going to touch on in this part is about the impact on comments from different ways of adding accounts into your reports. So as we all know, with a report that is built by the FP&A team, what's important is not only to show the numbers, how many you've got in your revenues and how much you've got in your variance. Those are important, but most important is that you will need to provide some comment or some narrative to why is the revenue so high or why is the revenue so low, or to explain why is the variance happening. So with that signifies one of the benefit of using OfficeConnect in Excel, because as we all know, it's an Excel add-on. You can always utilize the Excel features to add whatever notes and comment you want, which is something that you might not be able to do in web reports. So what our client usually likes to do is to put some comment to the report that you have built on OfficeConnect. So now I'm going to put some comment to this respective revenue account. Just say very good. And I'll do the same thing to the same revenue line for this product revenue. So with this comment being left, now I'm going to refresh the report to see what happened. So once I refresh the report, you can see the comment that I have left in row 7 for this line of product revenue remains. However, after refresh, the comment in row 14, this line of product revenue has disappeared. So why is that? So the issue with this is because the first method of the account being added to the report was using, if I come over to my account element list. So the first part of the account was added by right-clicking the account and using apply immediate children exclude. Whereas the second part of the account was added by right-clicking the account in the element list via apply and expand. Whenever apply and expand is used in the report, although you will have the benefit of expanding the account immediately or collapse the account if you want. But with that existing in your reports, what the behavior of the report would do is that every time when you refresh, they would actually collapse all the rows here that is belong to this revenue group and re-expand it again. So this process will repeat every time you refresh your report. So whenever these rows are collapsed and re-expand again, it will actually re-expand the brand new rows and erase what is existing or what nodes or whatever nodes you have left in this row here. So this is the reason why your nodes being left to the accounts that is being added via apply and expand would disappear. It is because they collapse and re-expand again. So with this issue, you just need to remember whenever you are building a report, if you want to utilize the comment method, you need to plan in advance and know what method that you will need to use to add the account into your report. Or if you do need to use comment, don't ever use the expand function because your nodes might not be able to maintain. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, or the second benefit of using adding account via group instead of adding account via apply and expand is that adding account via group will also allow you allow the report to automatically bring in the new account that is being added to the chart of account in Adaptive. But apply and expand would not have that benefit. So what I mean by that, I'll quickly come over to my chart of accounts in Adaptive. Oh, sorry, I guess they just logged me out now. I'll quickly log in again. So I'll go to my chart of accounts and general ledger. So I'll come over to my revenue account and I'll just add a new children account for testing purpose. Click OK. So, sorry. So you can now see there's a new testing children account being added under this revenue group. And now if I come back to my OfficeConnect report again, and I'll update elements. Sorry, it's taking a while to update the element. Yep, done. I'll refresh the report. Yep. So you can now see there's a new account being added to my report, which is to the chart of account, which is testing. It is automatically showing in here, but obviously currently it still doesn't have any numbers. It is automatically showing in the account group, which is added via apply account as a group. However, this account does not show in the bottom part, which is which the account was added via apply and expand. So this is another benefit of using adding your account via adding account via group. So to recap, first thing, the benefit of it is that you will remain your notes. Second thing, you will allow the auto update of the new accounts being added to your chart of account, which the apply and expand would all not be able to do that for you, and you have to manually add the account by yourself if you do use this second method. So now you may well come to me and say again, hey Ted, I know all these things now that you tell me, but what if you have done applying all the accounts via apply and expand? What you can do to fix it? So to do that, there is actually a grouping features on the top ribbon here, which can group all the accounts that are currently not as an account group in the Excel. So you don't have to apply all the accounts all over again. So to do that, I'll choose highlight all these children account here, and I'll come over to the grouping on the top, and I'll click group. So now the grouping has done, and to prove this concept, or to prove that it's working, I'll leave some notes here, and just to see whether the notes will still disappear or not. So you can see that the note actually remains. And also, the other way to validate that it's working is that you can utilize this manage tab in your OfficeConnect ribbon, whereby they will basically tell us whatever account group that is being used in your reports. So you can see that the bottom line here is the one that I have just changed it from apply and expand to account group. And in the pencil logo here, you can also see there was a new account being added, and you can just click OK. It will show in your report. So this is the second part of the presentation, which indicates the benefit or the impacts from different ways of adding accounts to your reports.